Today I'm painting the Undead Giant from the Chalice Dungeon of Bloodborne, the board game. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a good day. So we primed this mini with some uniform gray, and don't ask me why I did that because there's nothing on this mini that stays gray pretty much. Anyways, it was a good primer to use because it gets all the details I find. So we start off with an undead paint set unique color called Ghoul Grey. And I actually messed this up with the next color that's coming up. It was supposed to be the next color that goes on his face, but I was like, well, I'm gonna just leave it this way. And then I'm using Cold Flesh, which is an undead paint unique color as well. This is from the Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments paints, and this is a dry brush over his hood. And then we move on to some mummy robes for the top part of his body. He had like two different colors, sort of. I mean, I had to get inspired by someone on Board Game Geek to paint this because the artwork is just great. Again, this game is very dark, and if you look, so I had to look also like at the PlayStation version of the game to see what this guy looked like, to get my inspiration as well. And like I said, I found this on Board Game Geek and I went a bit with what he did. So I tried some different colors and changed it up a little bit, but using the artwork from the game itself is not easy for these guys because you only get like a close-up picture sometimes of just like the top part. I didn't even see the candles in the artwork, so it's very hard unless you actually have the book that sometimes Simon Games publishes with the Kickstarter versions in that. You can get the artwork. I tried looking on their Kickstarter as well, couldn't find too much about this guy, so I went with my own stuff. So the mummy robes again. So this is so as you can see, it's pretty thin. I do come back off camera to do a second layer just to make sure I get a nice coating, even coating everywhere. I use a wet palette for this, so sometimes the paint comes out a little bit lighter. People have been telling me, oh, don't keep your paints too thick, it gets rid of all the details. I don't know. Anyways, this one was already pretty thin anyway, so it's gonna look nice in the end. Then we're going to move on to some corpse pale, and so this is for the bottom half of his body, so including his legs, his arms, and this little protruding gross boil or whatever it is. I could have put that a different color completely too, but so this is just so that later on when I put a wash on, she's going to be a shade I'm going to be using, and that I regret as well later on, but it's okay. It all turns out really nice in the end. I really like how this miniature comes out. And if you like what I'm doing, guys, you can hit that subscribe button. I know we're getting close to the 100 subscribers, so if you're new to the channel and you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button please, and hit that notification bell as well to find out when new videos are posted. Once again, this paint is pretty thin, so I do a second layer off camera as well, just so you guys don't get bored of watching me paint this guy. It is pretty long, and he's got lots of nooks and crannies you got to get into. And again, it's one of those ones where you got to get an angle underneath him so you get the all the parts underneath that drab and stuff like that. Alright, so I come back to that Cold Flesh from the Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments, and I'm using this on these, like, I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's guts or tentacles. I mean, I could have went with like a reddish color thinking it was that, but I was like, I want these like to be like really like almost pale dead skin that was dangling off of this guy or something. So I went with this because you couldn't see this, and I couldn't see anywhere where this was painted differently, so I just went with Cold Flesh. And don't ask me why, but this guy has candles coming out of his back, so we're going to be using some Ancient Mummy, which is an Underdark unique paint as well. And, well, actually, it might not actually be unique. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, yes, it is. Okay, it is a unique color. I wasn't sure about that. So I'm just doing the side parts of the candles because I want to do a different color on the top parts, but again, when I do the shader later on, it kind of meshes it all up together, but I end up fixing it all. Sometimes when you're painting it, you're not happy what you're doing, but you can fix it all in the end. I mean, you can. This is what's fun about painting miniatures. You try what you like, and you come back and you fix it. It's not the end of the world. I mean, when you don't have a wash on too, it looks pretty horrible, but you learn. And this is where I finish off the top of the candles with some Arid Earth, which is from this Army Painter regular war paints. So it's a bit lighter yellow than the Ancient Mummy, so it kind of makes it look more like a wax that's like inside the part of the candle and also part of the wick. So now we're going to move on to the blades, and we're going to put some Stone Golem, which is a war paint from the Army Painter. And I'm going to just get those blades like this because he doesn't have like these big silvery blades, I noticed. So, and I also, for the coloring of this side one that's curved, I used the Board Game Geek's image inspiration to finish that one off as if like it was a hot poker, which is coming up soon. And so the next color I'm going to be using is a contrast paint from Citadel. It's Apothecary White. So I'm going to be using this color on his bandages where his hands used to be, and it's, I guess again this was not exactly how it was supposed to turn out. It gave it a little bit of a white highlight over the gray, but it wasn't really what I wanted. So here's that Casandora yellow, which is a sage from Citadel, and it's going to go over all the candles. So now it gives us this more glowing earth, or not earth, geez, glowing candle-like, I don't know. Anyway, so I finish these off with a dry brush later on. But this looks a little bit better. But you know what? In the end, it almost looks like the contrast Ivanden yellow or Nasdrag yellow, whichever one it is. And I could have just done that, I guess, because it's sort of similar, but it still comes out nice. Now I'm going to be using some Reikland Fleshsahde, and this is where I noticed, like, wow, this is brown. And I should have stopped right away, repainted over with that mummy robes, and use just like a light tone on the top part, but I wanted to, because I wanted it to have a different coloring. But when I finish off the miniature with some dry brushing after, it actually does separate the two skin tones pretty well. Alright, now we're going to be using everybody's favorite shade, Nuln Oil, and this is just for his hood to get into the recesses and bring out that dry brushing highlight automatically. And it's pretty cool how that works, so I find it cool, and I use it quickly on the blade that I'll be painting as well differently. This is some Stone Golem again. I'm doing a dry brush this time on those wraps, just to give it more of a grayish look, and it comes out better looking now than with just the white contrast. Now we're going to use some Blood Angels red, some Gryph-hound orange, and some Ivanden yellow. And we're going to make this poker, or whatever, this scythe thing, like as if it's like red hot out of hell kind of thing. And so I'm going to do some blending here, wet blending of the orange into the red, and then the yellow into the orange, just to make it look like it's, you know, really boiling hot at the tip. Looks good. So this was from Board Game Geek's inspiration. I could have with something else. Now I'm using a medium-sized dry brush from the Army Painter to dry brush a whole bunch of Filthy Cape, which is from the Army Painter War Paint line. And this is getting like that gross-looking skin, making it even more like decaying, like a grayish color. And this is where I add some Chaotic Red, or sorry, Crusted Sore, sorry about that. I'm going to do just a highlight over some of the rougher edges. And it looks like, you know, like this is like dried up blood from the skin that might have peeled off them and stuff like that. Pretty bad. Now I'm using some wet mud on the bottom part of this one blade. It just looked like it's gotten dirty, it's been dragging on the floor, and it's picking up some mud. And then I use some blood for the blood god to put on the top part of it, as if like he just cut up something and it's dripping down the sides a bit. And now I'm using this new texture paint, which is Ground Texture by Vallejo. I don't usually show my basing stuff on the videos, but I want to show this one. It's a really beautiful paste, and I'm making it like as if this was like an old road or an old part of the Chalice Dungeon or whatever. And I wish I had a better tool to flatten it out. I'll have to look into that. But this stuff's amazing. It takes a while to dry, but I put it in front of a fan and it dries up pretty quickly. It says 24 hours, but once you put it in front of a fan, it takes like half an hour. And you can dry brush, you can put a contrast paint on it, you can do whatever you want, you can put a regular paint. And I'm going to come with a toothpick and use it to draw lines, like as if I'm making a stone floor kind of thing. It's a little touchy. It's not the easiest using a toothpick or whatever, but I mean, I dig it out and get the grout out as if you know, this is all broken up stone, and it's really cool. And once it dried, I actually used black Templar on it, and you'll see that in the picture at the end. And it gets into the recesses nice, and it shows up like a really, looks like an old style road. Now I forgot, and I noticed that he had some stitches, like, or something holding his skin up, so I decided to use some Sulfide Ochre from the Army Painter and just go over those stitches quickly, not like too indigenously, and just take it easy on them. Just put a little bit on top, and it gives, they pop out a little bit. It's like this burnt orange kind of color. Looks like they're like almost been there for a long time, getting kind of crusty and dirty and stuff, because I mean, this guy is undead. So, and this is how it's going to finish off this miniature. Alright, so the Undead Giant is all painted and ready to fight the hunters in Bloodborne. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.